Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning into a brand new After Dinner mid-series titled Behind the Code. On the show, we welcome Art Blocks artists to share a deeper look into their project's creative coding and process. Today, we welcome Wuwa, who joins us to speak about his projects PrimiDance, PrimiLife, and PrimiEnd that together form the Primitive Trilogy. At the end of the show, we'll open the floor to questions that have been asked on the live YouTube page and our Discord. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, and I'll be happy to share my journey with art blocks and generative art and all about that.
Amazing. I'll go ahead and let you get started.
All right. So thank you for everyone tuning in. Let me introduce myself a bit. So hi, my screen name or artist name is Wuwa. It stands for While You Were Away. But also you can find me in different social areas under different names. If you check out Instagram, there I post some of my art and also some pictures of food. So that's under Ricky Fandoza. I want to start really quickly about some of my generative works pre-NFT times. I've been doing this for 18, 19 years. And just really quickly scan through them. This is a series of works of real-time generative video mappings for large urban projects. Here you can see a small video documentation of that. Everything is real-time generative, and it reacts to the architecture, to the building, to the music sometimes when there was like a DJ or a musical group playing. And this was a really long time ago, and maybe you can start to sense also my visual style. I always like to deal with basic forms of squares, circles, and so on. Let's move on. This is a different project. This is a video part, but it was a real-time generative video also in a gallery situation where people control this thing. It was really nice. It's a homage to Super Mario Brothers and also some artworks around that, mainly of Cory Arcangel, if you know him, a really great media artist. I do other works as well in a completely different realm, like websites or net art. I do consider them also as generative artworks. That's why I want to just talk about them for 1 second. So this is one of them. It's a website. It's called giftcinema.com. When you enter this website, you can search for any movie you want. Let's search for Rocky Part 3. And then it replays it in a generative way. It replays the full dialogue via the subtitles. And it pulls also at the same time GIFs from Giphy.com. And every time you get a generative experience. Some more works, more in generative parametric 3D modeling. And I'll skip through this one. This is a nice one, a nice test. This is a clock. I have a fetish for clocks. I do many clocks. This is the hour now where I am. It's the big boxes stand for hours, the medium ones for minutes, and the small ones for seconds. It's a live clock in a 3D environment. And some more, I really like pop culture and geometrical art. So you can see here, this is a series of many of those, but this is from First Blood Part 2 with Sylvester Stallone and voxels together. So that was until like 2020-ish, and a lot changed since then. It was pre-COVID times, pre-crypto, at least mainstream crypto and NFTs, pre-crypto collapse that is maybe happening in the last few weeks, and pre-art blocks. And then I discovered art blocks and NFTs, and this was a really life-changing moment for me. Generative art plus NFTs and the art blocks way of doing it really became something I really liked, love, and became invested in as an artist. And I'd like to present you now my 3 works on art blocks called the Primitive Trilogy. And I've released them over the past year. They're in 3 chapters: PrimiDance, PrimiLife, and PrimiEnd. And let's go through them. I see them also as a continuing state of mind of me as an artist, from creation to evolution and revolution. So the first chapter, PrimiDance, which coincidentally was released a year and 1 day ago. I was hoping it will be exactly 1 year, but it's a year and a day. And the basic idea when I started this was to deal with primitives of CGI or coding environments. Also because I love them, like you saw in my previous works, like very basic shapes, squares, circles, spheres, and so on. But also because this was actually my first project coding in P5. And I did a lot of coding in different environments, in processing and others, but in P5 it was the first, and I was just intrigued by the primitives that P5 exposes, which are these, the box, sphere, and so on. And I started thinking how I can work just with these to make something. And the first discovery I had was that even a sphere, actually with different parameters, can produce different types. This is a sphere with just different subdivisions, and then it becomes a diamond or a more with some ragged edges or very smooth sphere. Another example is the torus or bagel, that with different divisions becomes really different shapes. So I started playing around with this and trying to make something with just using the basic primitives, because of also my idea of this primitive trilogy and the first chapter. And this is an example of one of the first tests. And by the way, I want to, this whole session now, I want to like take you along my journey of the creative process and what happened along the way. And I think it's might be interesting to hear, because I see creative coding as a really different process from other creative works, from like design or art or like regular art. It's like really a different kind of journey. So this was one of the first tests. Let's see it here live. You see this is the live version. Every time I'll refresh, I get a different render. And it's actually quite simple. It's just throwing all these primitives on this 3D grid. And sometimes you see it's like a 4x4 grid. Sometimes it's more dense. Let's do a couple more. This is a really just 2x2. And I started thinking if this is interesting enough. Actually, I did find here some interesting points of view, or if I go inside, I think some really interesting stuff might start to happen. But anyway, these were the first tests. I didn't think they were like interesting enough. And then I started using what I call trails, is like using the same primitives, but spreading them out over frames, meaning that they leave a trail. It's like using them as some kind of brush. So again, one of these tests, let's see it here. I'll refresh. Notice what is happening here. Here it randomizes a few of these primitives, and then it starts stretching them out. Sorry. See these few again. These few primitives are just like moved along the x-axis with some rotation and some randomness, and they make these really complex and beautiful trails, in my opinion. A few more. But in this moment in the process, I thought actually this is really interesting and I might use it later, but it's not what I was aiming for the first chapter. I wanted to expose the primitives as they are and not use them to do more complex stuff like this. So moving on, I went back to try and do some compositions with these primitives, and this is what I ended up with. And let's see it here live. So again, I'll refresh a couple times. You might know this from art blocks. So the idea here was to control somehow the chaos to order distribution. Always you see there is the central sphere or planet, and around it orbiting the different satellites as the primitives are around it. There's, of course, many small parameters here, the amount of primitives, their position, rotation, speed, and so on. But I wanted to stop this chapter at a quite basic place, that they are all quite similar, but still different. In order to make a very strong series, a graphic series of these primitives. And also I would like to highlight the fact that I really believe that in my works, I like that the art is not just each mint is generative, but also each viewer or collector can endlessly generate their own views, meaning that they can also choose the angle or the zoom level. But also here is where I incorporated the trails that I just showed you a minute ago. So I incorporated it here as a feature that if you click T on the keyboard, the trails begin. And then it becomes kind of a lava lamp or endless changing composition of colors and shapes. And I thought this was a really nice balance that I like between the primitives and the more complex shapes. Let's do another one. Here, the trails again. And then you get like this gooey lava lamp that keeps changing forever. So it's like a generative artworks inside a generative mint or edition. Let's talk a bit about color. So you might have noticed that, yeah, I didn't mention it, but one of the main things here I decided to do was use a lot of palettes, and these are the actual mints that were born on the Artblocks website. And also I made a small website of my own to filter them. This was actually before Artblocks introduced the cool filtering on their site, but here you can see all of them, and like I can either sort by the palettes, and then you can see here all the palettes, or by the or filter. This is a specific one or another one, or just wireframe, and all these modes, and then you can also see the specific one live. So these were all the ones that were born, and then I want to like mention that some features I made kind of a rarity of my own. The wireframe mode, like this mode, to expose also the basic primitives. So this was a rare mode of a wireframe, but the color mode, the palettes, actually this was not super planned ahead of time, but I found it really interesting that this is a perfect palette. Okay, each palette is made out of 3 colors. In this case, it's a purple, dark, almost black, and almost white. But the way it's distributed to background and main object and the other objects makes that each palette is actually can be divided to 9 different states. And some of these palettes, like you saw here, came out more intense in one kind of background color, or others more mixed, or others really not enough, or others like a full perfect 9 or more of these palettes. So I thought that was interesting, of kind of an emergent feature of rarity that came. Like I said, also I designed a few more specific rarity features like wireframe. But I really started to understand that I really enjoy and like more emergent ways of rarity to emerge just from combinations of stuff, but not just because it's like really rare by design. And I'll get to that further in the other chapters. This was the first chapter, and also it was I learned a lot doing it. It was my first like blockchain project, and I was playing around, but I didn't know exactly what I was doing, and it was really nice to learn along the way. Just another example of one of the palettes that is like white on white that became more popular or more expensive, even though it's not super rare, but collectors like this as a, I don't know, white alligator or something of that sort. And actually I really like it also, but it became rare just because of the context of the viewer's context, that white and white is more special. Moving on, so there's the next chapter, PrimiLife. And here I decided to do a different approach, still use the primitives and also the same color palettes, but do a different approach. And it started when I was looking at the PrimiDance mints. I was looking at them for hours and hours, coding and testing, and I started seeing these faces with ears or a koala bear, and I really started seeing characters or all kinds of manifestations of figurative stuff, even though it's very geometric and abstract. So this was like the inspiration for this chapter. And I started thinking now how I can use the same primitives and combine them into more complex shapes. So this is a small example of how just two boxes or a box and a sphere are connected and make a much more and complex and even surprising shape. Like when I did this, I had no idea this will come out as a star, and it's really simple. Yeah, it's two boxes, but it depends also on the viewing angle, and this is just a small example, but I started doing like dozens, if not hundreds, of experiments like this, and then I started writing these subroutines. This is a very simple example, but I'll show it to you live here. So this is one of the subroutines for something that will later evolve into the eyes of these characters. So every time I refresh, it randomizes the number of eyes and their position and how much they are randomized, their symmetry or jitter, and all kinds of different views of this subroutine. And just another simple one, this is evolved into being some kind of hair or something of these characters. So there's left or right, there's the number, there's the density, and all kinds of very simple parameters that make up to a rich visual experience of this specific subroutine. So I started playing around with this, and then I remembered an older project of mine called Totems, and I'll show it also. It's a project that generates kind of these totems of graphic signs, again around basic shapes, triangles, lines, and so on. And by the way, an interesting story about this, that again, this can generate millions, if not billions of outputs. But I did this for a friend that wanted a geometric tattoo, and we decided that I'll do it. We'll run it by him and do that he's happy with the results. But then once we did a special ceremony that we will generate one edition or mint, even it's not on the blockchain, but we'll do like a ceremony to generate the one mint, and then he'll get it as a tattoo. And that was what happened. This is just a mock-up. It's not the real thing. It's a guy, a friend of mine, and not a woman. But I think it's another interesting project around generative art that suddenly collapses into just one actual real life thing. So I remember that project, and then I started building a bit about this idea of a controlled drawing with some generative routines. I started building this project, and then what came out is the PrimiLife project. So this is how it looks. I'm generating a few more. And this chapter, I think, what was interesting for me, it's like a completely different approach. If the first one was more around distributing and some math about the composition and sizes and angles, this one is much more like controlled and like drawing. And my aim was to make some kind of controlled visual language, harmonic, beautiful, but also generative enough that it can make billions of outputs, and some really surprising even for me. And these are some of them. Also here, I introduced the same palettes, and here on this is a testing environment, so I can show you that even like a specific palette, if I change the distribution of the colors, it's really changing, really different. So this is another aspect of randomness or variation. And also there's the wireframe mode, of course, and also the trail mode for those who want it. Here I turned it on, and it's slow, but you can see it here. It's making it into more this lava lamp kind of thing. There's also some special, more designed rarity modes, party mode. This is the party mode. Now I'm invoking it myself, but of course some mints are like that and some are not. I lost my line of thought. Okay, so yeah, and then like always, I did this. This drop release was bigger, 1024. So you can see them all in this interface, and sort them or filter them. For example, another special feature was the siblings. Let me see it. Where is it? Here, the either twins, just 3 twins, or siblings, which means that there's a couple of them that are either twins or siblings, like from the same family or not. And then after this project, so I had to keep this experiments of the siblings. So I did this. It's not on the blockchain, but a version that creates like families, like 16 each in this case. And actually, I really like them. Maybe I'll do a special edition project around this one day. And these, for example, are some of the black-white ones that were minted, and the wireframe mode. And also another special feature is more crazy animations. This is one example. And you should really check it out. I'm really, really happy with this project. That it's I think on a superficial level, it's like characters or a PFP project, but my take on it was that to do it in a different way, that it's not really characters for PFP or for just making this kind of NFT thing, but more research or search for visual language using all these primitives, the basic primitives of CGI. And this brings me to the final chapter, which was a couple months ago, PrimiEnd. And here I wanted to take a third approach. If like I had the more distribution approach of the first one, and then the drawing and controlled approach of the second one, now I wanted to do a more mathematical or natural organic approach to these primitives, and also show how they can maybe lose their primitive shapes of the very basic squares, spheres, and so on. So I started searching for all kinds of ways to do it. I returned to these grids from the first chapter to maybe pack a lot of these primitives in various grids. Again, really interesting results for all kinds of these moire patterns, or condensed or not. But I didn't follow through on this direction. And again, it felt to me like a dead end. And then I remembered that I really was once interested in attractor functions. And these are a few tests. I'll show it here. So I made this small test, just the points of these locations in the XY space. And these functions, strange attractors or attractors, are really weird functions that converge from sometimes really structured stuff to very chaotic stuff. You know, I'm just playing around with some of these parameters. And I did them. I used this for a few projects over the last 10 years, but I really dove into them again now, to this really strange world of strange attractors. And it's like really a balance between chaos and order, which is something this whole series is talking about. And let me try and find another interesting, less chaotic spot. Let's say this one. And then playing around with these. And so anyway, this was a direction that I really liked. And I also started seeing here more figurative shapes of faces or animals and such. And then I started trying to fit the actual primitives on these. So here are another few tests. This is taking one of these setups of this function as a trail, and then putting every time different kinds of primitives on it. You might notice that actually here that the primitives are from the PrimiLife project. Like sometimes it's the eyes or the body. Just as a test. Sometimes it depends again on your viewing angle and on the rate of the animation and all kinds of parameters. Sorry. This is a more advanced test of actually using the basic primitives again. This is a mix. It becomes really a complex shape. Another one. And finally, it started converging into this. This is using the palettes of the previous chapters and some of the trail function. And I started liking this. This is still not the final one. I started playing with this. But what was for me still missing, it still looks like kind of a path or a trail, which was too controlled for this chapter in my mind. And I was still searching for like a balance between some kind of chaotic composition and still something not too chaotic that it's still beautiful or still connected to the series. And so finally, I arrived to the final project, which is this one, that builds up from the basic path. Here you can see it. And if I let go of the mouse, it builds up this kind of kinetic sculpture in 3D space. Let's do another one. And what I really like about it also, I like the balance of the visuals between these primitives or the organic shapes and others. But also I really, really like that, again, it's in my work, I really believe the viewer or collector or whoever is watching this art can somehow keep generating more. So in this case, it generates the basic shape or 3D sculpture. But if I use the mouse or on my phone even, so I can regenerate endless angles of this sculpture and also expose, while doing this, expose the actual, how it's built. But really, each of these mints contains endless millions of other variations. And I really like this in generative art, especially on the web, that to use the animation and interaction and not just still images. So each of these can be regenerated in very, very different views. Let's do a couple more. And also, there's even more controls that are a bit hidden, but you can also, for example, make them here. Everything is, in this case, faster, or turn on or off the trail. So you can get really, really different results if you're willing to put the effort. This is an example. And another one. This is actually a rare one with super small instances. So this was launched, released in March, and for 256 editions. And again, I really like the emergent features or emergent mints. These are some of the ones I really like. I really like starting seeing things in these. So here are a few examples. This one I call Swallow. I really see here like some kind of beast swallowing another. This is the Rooster. And this is the Devil's Heart. There's many more of these that I labeled or named and like. And I'll finish on just another special feature or Easter egg, that all the special numbers like 66 or 666 got a special palette, in this case, the Devil palette. And it kind of happened because while I was working on this, I listened to a lot of Pixies music. And for those who know, Monkey Gone to Heaven has this lyrics of the 567, the man, devil, and God. Thank you very much for listening, for tuning in. You can check out more of my art on my website or Instagram or Twitter. And I would love to take some questions if people are here. Thank you.
Awesome. That was a really interesting presentation. I was curious. I want to start off the question myself, if that's okay. The idea of doing a trilogy series, I found to be interesting. Have you ever done a trilogy series before?
No, I've done like projects that kind of evolved into different phases, but no, not a real trilogy. And I honestly I don't remember exactly if I when this dropped in my mind. Like it wasn't an idea before everything. Like after the first project, this came up somehow that I felt, maybe because I felt that also I'm learning the space of like long form generative art and art blocks and NFTs. It felt to me that like the first chapter is not complete, and that I want to develop it into one or two more projects and not jump to a completely different project. So I guess that's how it happened, but it wasn't super planned ahead of time. But like after, between the first and the second, it started happening in my mind.
And on that topic, I wonder if this will be interesting for current or future Art Blocks artists. When did you share with Art Blocks itself that you intended to add an additional series and make it a trilogy?
I think I don't fully remember the dates or the details, but I think when I knew about it, it was between the first and second chapters. Like going into the second one, I knew there will be a third one as well. So I let the collectors and the community know. I'm not sure exactly how many people remembered it, but yeah, when I had at least the broad idea, I shared it. Yeah.
Cool. We have a question from Sigmatic Art. They ask, any plans to make the shader more interesting and up to date, such as adding standard PBR?
For these projects, probably not. Like they're done and complete, but for sure, I'm now working on. I'm interested in 3D on the web, and I'm looking into more complex ways of like more realistic or complex ways of rendering. This was using really plain vanilla P5, so without complex shaders or anything, just the vanilla P5 functions, because of also the idea of these primitives that the P5 exposes, and also the lighting or the way it renders. I didn't want to jump into more extensive libraries or coding environments for this project. But for others, also, if you saw at the beginning, other projects I do with different styles of rendering and yeah, more realistic or PBR and such. So the future projects, yeah, but for this one, actually, I like this kind of more basic or rough idea of the primitives and the rendering.
Cool. I have another question. I was wondering what your thought process was behind adding the special features like wireframe, trails, and party mode.
So there's a few, it depends what. So some are just because I wanted to make something that will stand out and be cool and kind of rare, but also just nice to watch, like the party mode, or like the siblings and twins. Some are more based on actual ideas of this whole series, like the wireframe mode, for example, is not just for the sake of it. I think it's a mode that adds to the concept of talking about these primitives. I'm trying as we speak to see if here I can invoke also the party mode or the wireframe mode, but I can't. So I think every long form series needs some kind of enough features or enough variety to make some stuff more special or rare. So some were more designed and engineered this way, like the party mode or wireframe, but some were not engineered this way and just happened, like these special shapes you see in them, or the special palettes sets that were minted. Some sets were really full and some not. So yeah, there's also, this was what I learned along this way of this trilogy, that how to engineer rarity and how to just search for rarity that just happens organically, which I prefer actually.
Awesome. That's the last question I have from myself and the community. I wanted to thank you so much for joining us today, and everyone who joined to watch. We hope to be releasing new episodes about every other week. Until then, happy minting, be great, and I'll see you in the Discord server.
Thank you very much for having me, and hope whoever watched this enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you. See y'all.